Okay, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is for you. Today we're going to learn about completing the square. All right, and I'll be honest with you. It's a little bit of work to get good at this at the beginning, but once you get the rhythm down, it's actually quite easy. Okay, and this is the idea that we're going to do today. We're going to take some uh, polynomial, right? Let's say like 6x, and we're going to say, what do you add to it, right? What do I add to it so that I can make it into some number x plus or minus something squared. All right? All right. If you go back to that lesson on sum of squares and difference of squares, right? Last chapter, chapter 9, I believe, right? There's a relationship here, all right? We want to figure out what does this number need to be, all right? And what does this number need to be so that I can make a square, all right? That's going to be hard at the beginning. So let me just first remind you of something. Well, you know what? Not even remind you of something. Let me just do it because I really do think if you get the pattern down, this gets real easy, okay? So this is all you're going to do. You're going to take whatever the 6x, whatever the middle is, right? The 6x. You're going to cut it in half, right? You're going to cut 6x in half, and you're going to get 3, right? You're really not going to divide the x in half. You're just going to divide the 6 in half. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. You're going to write a 3 here, okay? That's easy. Now, we got to think to ourselves, if it was x plus 3, so let's do that. Let's do x plus 3 squared. X plus 3 times x plus 3, right? What do we get? We get x squared. Ooh, good. X squared, same thing. We get 3x and 3x. There's my 6. But check this out. We also get a 9. So what does this need to be? Well, if this was a 9, it would work. Okay? So let's do it again with another number. I'm going to call this a rhythm, okay? Let's do x squared minus 10x plus what will make a square. Okay, all you have to do is you're going to put an x here, right? X. And you're going to say, what is negative 10 divided by 2? Negative 5. So you're going to put a negative 5 here. Getting a lot of extra writing on here, I apologize. So negative 5, and then this is all you do. You think to yourself in your head, and you're going to get the rhythm down really quickly. You're going to figure out what these are every time. If this was x minus 5 times x minus 5, you get negative 5x here, you'd get negative 5x here. There's the 10x, right? But you would also create a 25, right? So you need a 25 here. So what am I saying? I'm saying if this number was 25, then I could make x minus 5 squared. All right. So let's look at the examples in your notes, okay? Because I think the best way to do this is just get a couple examples down. All right? What does C need to be so that I can make a square? Well, let's go to the rhythm of it. You ready? You square root that, right? X squared is going to be x. You take 8, you divide it by 2. You get 4, so you put 4 here. Now, by now, if we were in a class together, we'd be talking about this, and I'd ask somebody, well, what's C going to be? And someone would say, well, Mr. Gillespie, all you're doing is you're just squaring the 4. Right. If this was a 16, then you could make x plus 4 squared. You can check it if you need to, okay? Check it with a Punnett square if you don't believe me. X plus 4 and x plus 4. You get x squared. Check. You get 4x and 4x. There's the 8x that I needed. Then you get 4 times 4 is 16. And so if that was a 16, it would be x plus 4 squared. All right, again. X squared minus 12x plus what will make a square? Well, it's going to be x, right? Then you take negative 12, you divide it by 2, you get negative 6. So it's going to be minus 6. And then how do you find C? So this tells you this, and then you square that, and that tells you this. This will be 36. Again, let's do it with another number. All right, what does C need to be so I can make a square? Well, it's going to be x, right? What's half of 3? Half of 3 is 3 halves. Then you have to square 3 halves. 3 halves squared is 9/4. So C would have to be 9/4. All right? Okay, so what are we doing? This is what this is saying here. So watch this. What is this piece right here saying? It's actually quite easy. Ready? You take b, you cut it in half. That'll tell you what's in here, right? Half of b goes in there. And then whatever b is, b over 2, right? You take that number, you put it back in here, and you square it. That's all you're doing, all right? Okay, so you're asking me now, well, Gillespie, why would I want to learn how to do this? How is this going to help me? All right, next step, completing the square to solve math problems. All right, so we have to back up for a second because we have to talk about something else for a minute, right? Let me erase this here. All right, if I have an equation like this, x plus 3 squared equals, let's say, 16, right? If I can make a problem look like this, and listen, think about this for a minute. We just learned how to make a problem like this, right? We learned how to manipulate a problem and turn it into a square, right? Now watch what I can do here. I can square root both sides, right? So I'm going to square root both sides, right? I get x plus 3 equals positive or negative 4. And then I subtract 3 from both sides, right? And I get x equals plus or minus 4 minus 3, right? So I get x equals 4 minus 3 or negative 4 minus 3. So I get x is 1 or x is negative 7. These both work. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to make problems look like this. Let me get rid of the radical because we don't need that to see this. But if we can make problems look like this, we can solve them using this method. If the key is if we can make things something squared, then we can square root both sides and get rid of the square, okay? So here we go. Let's try this. So here's what we're going to do. You need to get into this rhythm. We're going to do this for at least 2 days, okay? You're going to say to yourself, you're going to rewrite this as x squared minus 16x plus what will give me a square. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to write a blank there, and then you're going to write a blank here, and I'll explain why you're going to write a blank there in a few seconds, okay? So x squared minus 16x plus what will give me something squared? Well, think about it. We just did that a few minutes ago, right? What do? We look at this number. I'm going to underline it in red, right? We look at this number. We take half of it, so it's going to be x minus 4. Then what do? We take the negative 4 and we square it and we put it here. 6. Oh, goodness. I just made a humongous mistake. I hope you caught it yourself, right? Let's pretend that didn't happen. All right, so let's back up a step. I was like, how did I get that? All right, what is half of negative 16? Negative 8, right? All right, so negative 8. Then we square that and it goes here. So 64. Now here's the key. I just added 64 to the left side, so I must add 64 to the right side. Because of that really basic idea, if I add something to one side, I got to add it to the other side. You've been doing it in algebra all year. That shouldn't be a big deal. But I'm creating, right, this 64 I made up, right? I added 64 to this side so that I could make this square, right? So that I could make this square right here. So I added 64 to that side so that I could make a square. All right, and then I get this. Then I get negative 15, right, plus 64. What is that? Actually, I should write it this way. Right, I get what? 9, and that's 5, so that's 4, 49. Right? So I got x minus 8 squared equals 49. All right, what do I do now? Now the key is I just wrote this as a square, so all I have to do is square root both sides. And I end up with x minus 8 equals, what's the square root of 49? It's not 7, it's plus or minus 7. Bring the 8 over, plus 8 plus 8. I end up with x equaling positive or negative 7 plus 8. So I end up with 7 plus 8 and negative 7 plus 8. So I end up with x equaling 15 and 1. Those are my two answers. All right, a lot of stuff there. Let's do it again. Ready? All right, start this problem off by dividing everything by 2. All right. You end up with x squared plus 10x minus 4 equals 0. All right, for this method to work, the first thing you need to do is you need to get the x squared plus 10x by itself. So we're going to add 4 to both sides, right? And we're going to write it like this. Now watch how I write this. X squared plus 10x plus something will equal 4 plus that something. And what do I want to do? I want to make it into a square. Okay, so every time you're going to write this piece, and this, right? You're just going to put blanks there, okay? So, next step, what do? We take the 10x, we divide 10 by 2, and we get 5. So we get x plus 5, right? Then what do? We take that 5 and we square it and we put it here, 25. But if I add 25 to one side, I got to add 25 to the other side. So I end up with 29, right? Okay, why did I do all that? I did all that because I'm going to square root both sides now, right? And I get x plus 5 equals plus or minus root 29. I'm not going to touch that, okay? I'm going to leave it as a radical. All right, so I'm going to come up here. X plus 5 equals plus or minus root 29, right? So minus 5, I end up with x equaling plus or minus root 29 minus 5. So what are my answers? Root 29 minus 5 and negative root 29 minus 5. Those are my two answers to the problem. Now, you may have seen stuff like this before, right? You may have seen stuff like this before. Because when we did a quadratic equation, right? In fact, we did quadratic equation just a few days ago. And this is looking like the quadratic equation, right? Like the kind of answers we get from the quadratic equation. In actuality, when we complete the square, we're actually just doing the quadratic equation. All right. And when I have some time at the end of this, I'll explain that to you. All right, let's do it again. Next problem. Ready? We already got the 3 on the other side. That's good. We want this piece by itself, right? That always has to be by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is this. We're going to say x squared minus 2x plus what will give me something squared. Now, if I add a blank to one side, I got to add the same blank to the other side. Just like before, it starts off like this every single time, right? Then what do? We take the negative 2, right? We divide it by 2, so we get x minus 1. Then what do we do with the negative 1? We square it. Negative 1 squared becomes 1. But if I add 1 to one side, I got to add 1 to the other side, right? So I get 3 plus 1 is 4. So there's my math problem, right? Then I square root both sides, and I get x minus 1 equals plus or minus 2. Then I add 1 to this side and 1 to this side. I get x equals positive 2 plus 1 and negative 2 plus 1. So I end up with x equaling, right? What do I get? 3 and negative 1. Oops, not a parenthesis. Right? It's not a point. It's a set. All right, let's do it again. Let's get a little bit better with these. Next problem. X squared plus 10, that's m, sorry, plus what will give me a square, right? Well, I already have a negative 8 over here, so I'm going to add the blank to this side. Why do I add it to both sides? Because if I add something to one side, I got to add it to the other side, right? So this becomes m, and then half of 10 is 5, so plus 5. Then what do? I square it, and I put 25 there. But if I add 25 to one side, I got to add 25 to the other side. So I end up with negative 8 plus 25. Negative 8 plus 25. Let's see. 25 minus 8 is, what is that? 17, right? 17. Then I square root both sides. So I end up with m plus 5 equals plus or minus root 17. Then I subtract 5 from both sides, right? And I end up with m equaling plus or minus root 17 minus 5. So what are my two answers? Root 17 minus 5 and negative root 17 minus 5. That's my two answers. I don't like the way that radical looks, right? All right. Again. All right. Example 8. First thing we're going to do, look at the common denominator. There's a 3 here, right? So we're going to divide everything by 3. So we're going to get x squared minus 8x plus 9 equals 0. We always want to get, I'm going to circle this, okay? We always want to get this, whoa, do not circle it in a big fat color. We always want to get this part by itself. So we're going to have to bring the 9 over. So negative 9, negative 9. So we end up with x squared minus 8x equals negative 9. What do I need to add to both sides so that this can be a square? Okay, what do? We do x, right? Half of negative 8 is negative 4. Then we square it and we put it here, 16. So we're going to add 16 to both sides. Negative 9 plus 16 is 7, I believe. Right? And then square root both sides. So we get x minus 4 equals plus or minus root 7. Then we add 4 to both sides. So we end up with x equals plus or minus root 7 plus 4. So our answers are root 7 plus 4 and root 7 minus 4. That's my two answers to the problem. All right? Okay, that's it. It's going to take you a while to get good at these. If you need to, come back, watch the video again, think about it, get the rhythm down, okay? It's not that bad once you get it down, and you're actually going to discover that you really like to do problems this way because it always works, okay? Well, good luck with this. If you need help, send me an email or send me a question on YouTube. I'd be more than happy to help you guys out. All right, good luck with this. Bye.